Good morning, One Spa World. My next guest today on this beautiful Monday morning is a guy who's passionate about businesses that use technology to teach and uplift. After 10 years of running his own advertising agency in South Africa, he decided he needed a change. Since 2014, he's been living a digital nomad lifestyle and currently lives in Guatemala. The travel blog that he started in 2014 has rebranded to livemoreperfectdays.com, a community of lifestyle designers that are taking ownership of how they show up in all areas of their lives by implementing tools and technology to support them on their path. In 2018, Gareth partnered with his sister-in-law Tamlin to create an e-learning platform called keepitoncore.co.za, one of South Africa's first online platforms that helps high school students improve their math grades. Along with another partner, he recently launched an ongoing project called Ignite Your Business. The platform helps coaches and freelancers define their personal brand and get clear on a marketing message that attracts their ideal tribe. Gareth Pickering believes that the two most important days of a person's life are the day that they were born and the day that they figure out why. Good morning, Gareth. How are you?
Good, and you, bro? Thanks for that formal introduction.
So good, so good. You know, Gareth, you're one of the most interesting people I know, and the fact that we come from the same hometown, that we went to the same school, just makes it all that more special. You are coming live to us from Guatemala, the beautiful sanctuary, which is a place that I've had the privilege to come and visit and spend some time with you there. So I know how incredibly gorgeous it is, and what a great setting that you've managed to manifest for yourself.
Yeah, bro, it's beautiful here today. We had a slow start to the day. It's let's see if I can show you the view out onto the lake. But super clear day here despite it being rainy season. And excited about our chat today, bro.
Magic. Well, Gareth, a lot of people will probably be wondering why I've got somebody, sort of outside of our industry talking to us today. And they will soon find out why, because I think the topics that you cover with your businesses and the work you've been doing over the last 6 years are absolutely fundamental for every person to sort of think about and use in their own lives. So, Gareth, just a little bit before we get on with the subject at hand, I'd like your take sort of on what's going on in the world right now around us. Obviously, a lot of people's lives have been upheaved. It's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of doubt, a lot of fear. So could you just tell us quickly, where were you and how did this affect you personally?
The big question is what's going on in the world at the moment. And I think there's a lot of speculation and there's a huge amount of media that's been sent to us on different platforms telling us different stories. And I think it's hard to have a very clear idea of exactly what's happening in the world at the moment. I am of the opinion that it's some sort of death and rebirth cycle that our planet needs to go through. What exactly the cause of that is, whether there's something called coronavirus or whether it's driven by some conspiracy theorists, whatever that is, I think it's a natural flow of what we're going through. It affected us pretty big. We were organizing a retreat here at Lake Atitlan in Guatemala. Our retreat was starting on the 14th of April, and there had been people starting to talk about this virus in a couple of weeks leading up to it. And pretty much of the 100 people coming to our 2-week-long event, our retreat here, all of them are pretty much coming from other destinations. So they're traveling to get to Guatemala. And so I was organizing, my partner Araminta was the facilitator of this event. And so we were busy managing close to 100 people all phoning, asking different questions. Should I get on a flight? I'm currently in Guatemala. What should I do? We were talking to the venue about their concerns around bringing people from all over the world to their venue with the potential fear of contamination and stuff like that. So it was a pretty interesting 2 weeks as we danced through these rings of fire in a lot of ways as we went through the process of deciding exactly what we were going to do. And what essentially ended up happening is we had our level 1 went ahead. We had most of our participants, I think about 35 people already in Guatemala. They went through the level 1 ESTA training. And following that, a couple of people managed to stay on. We couldn't take any more people onto the premises, the location where we were holding the retreat. But we then ended up in sort of a forced retreat. And it also, it feels like a lot of us are going through a forced retreat at the moment, you know, being told to stay home, to lock down and to isolate. And I think this is part of the process that I think we've been called to do, to just sit in stillness for a while. I know myself and my partner have been traveling quite a lot the last year, and we had been feeling like we wanted to sit still and spend a little bit more time just relaxing and taking a breath. And yeah, this is not quite the way we had envisioned doing it, but it feels like we're all being called into some sort of forced retreats at the moment.
Yeah. And would you say that being in stillness is an important part? Like you talk about the death and rebirth phase, like being able to actually contemplate one's own existence, have that stillness, you know, sometimes that self-talk can be quite hard without the distraction of our normal busy day lives.
I think it's the normal busy day lives that's got us to the point where we're at. I believe that I think our planet has been giving us signals for a while that we need to slow down. We need to change the rate that we consume at and produce at, and continually just consume is really the word. But I think this process is calling us to do this. And I think this stillness process that we're in at the moment, I've been thinking about this quite a lot, because quite a few businesses have approached me to talk to them about what we're going through at the moment. And for me, it feels like this analogy of the caterpillar, the chrysalis, and the butterfly. We go through these phases, and it's a natural phase of life. And I feel like where we came from, the previous phase, everything leading up to COVID, was pretty much our caterpillar phase, just a phase of life that we went through. And I think at the moment we're sort of in this chrysalis phase, where we're basically just like this goo, which feels uncomfortable. Nobody knows quite what to do. And I think anybody that's in this process of thinking, well, we'll just go back to business as usual, is almost going to lose the gifts of the chance to move to the next phase that is a natural process of death and rebirth that we need to go through in this phase. And I think most of us are sitting in this yucky, uncomfortable chrysalis phase. No one knows what to do. And yeah, it's really a time to be in stillness and to be in a place to be able to reflect on the caterpillar phase and what we can take from that, what we did well, and what we need to let die, because I think there's a lot of stuff that we need to let go of. It's an old paradigm of working, of consuming, of living, and finding a new way to come out of this. So I think that stillness that you ask about is by its nature what we need to be doing in this chrysalis phase in the middle. And it's hard for us to do. More and more we're becoming human doings, you know, always doing something, do the next thing. And so I think we've been called to be human beings and just be for a while and to see what wants to emerge.
Yeah, and that's super hard, especially where everything that you've held dear in your old world, like, you know, your finances, your job, business as usual starts to fall away, and you don't have that anymore. Are there any kind of practices, you know, sort of that you would suggest for people to take up or start to research and look at while they're in this time, whether they're sort of confined to, you know, a small space, like for example our staff on ships, or whether they're at home now with their families and they can't leave their homes? Are there any practices that you think would be helpful for people to, you know, to sort of take stock of exactly what you're talking about?
So actually there's a process that I'm working on at the moment, and I'm thinking about this frame of business unusual as a way to be able to reflect, as opposed to just jumping to the next thing and finding a way to go back and do it slightly differently, but do it the same way we've always done. And I think there's these 4 R's that I've been coming up with. And one of them is to have resources. And these are tools that you know that you can use, that you can implement, things like journaling, reflection processes, meditation, emotional release tools, a lot of stuff that we have to go deep into those. I know we've only got a short amount of time to go deep into those tools and those practices, those resources, is probably a topic for a whole different conversation. I'm happy to come back and do that. We have some of this stuff already part of our online community at Live More Perfect Days, these tools that you can go through to understand how to navigate these times and to go into reflection. So that's the first part, resources. The second R is reflection. So looking back, that's what I touched on there. Like, what can we do? At Live More Perfect Days, we have this idea of a post game, which is looking back on something that's happened, like the last year of your life, or the last week of your life, or a weekend, or an event, and do a post game where you can start with gratitude, write down the things that you can be grateful for that particular phase. What can I take from this phase? What have I learned from this phase? What are my lessons? So you write down what those lessons are. And then if I had the chance to do that phase again, what would I do differently? So that's really the reflection process. The second is sorry, the third now would be ritual. So it's resources, then reflection. Ritual is the ability to be able to create some sacredness in the space that we're in at the moment, and to navigate the dance between being in stillness and allowing yourself to let go of some of the old stories. You're starting to move more towards the butterfly phase, and you're starting to think about what you believe the next phase could look like, and allowing yourself to dream. So that's the ritual phase. Those things can be done with some sorts of practices, like creating a perfect day. Another tool that we have at our livemoreperfectdays.com website. And then the rebirth phase is almost the going into the butterfly phase. And at that stage, you really need to have these different tools that will support your strategy to make sure that if this is my new direction, how am I going to get there? And make sure that I'm controlling my reality in every single moment, as opposed to just being pulled from one place to the next by the work that I do or the media that I consume or whatever. So just those consciousness pieces across all three of those. So it's really resources, reflection, ritual, and rebirth. Those 4 R's would be the way to navigate it. And again, bro, there's quite a lot that we can unpack in each of those, but there's a process that people can go through at livemoreperfectdays.com, which does sort of tackle these 4 R's.
Wonderful. Yeah, your platform, Live More Perfect Days, I think that's a great place to go to for a lot of people, because, I also find for myself, it's good to have a little bit of guidance, a bit of structure. And I know that you've spent, the last 6 years really through your own experience and the partnerships you've created to really think deeply about this and provide the resources and this platform to help people along. So we'll get into that in a second. Gareth, I just want to go back a little bit just so that people get to know a bit about you. So, not last time I saw you, because I was in Guatemala, but I remember in 2014, I was going through a little bit of a rebirth myself. I'd had a life in South Africa, and I'd started a business, and I'd really been in the throes of just chaos, of my own life, and doing something really, which when I look back at, really did serve me, but at the time was really crushing me. And I remember us meeting up at a bar. We were saying goodbye to friends. I was saying goodbye to my group of friends. You were saying goodbye to your group of friends, and you were on your way on the 6-month journey, this trip that you had planned around the world. You were taking a sabbatical. So you were in the marketing game. You actually had your own marketing company for 10 years. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And you decided, or you felt that this wasn't serving you anymore. You weren't really happy with the direction your life was going. Step me through just, in short, sort of your journey from making that decision to go on a 6-month trip to then ultimately ending up in Guatemala 6 years later, and the wonderful journey around the world that you've had since.
Yeah, I think it always sounds a lot more romantic when you look back and reflect on it now. It's like, oh, you just did the things and suddenly everything fell into place. But really, it was probably about 3 or 4 years of pushing water uphill with my business in South Africa. I was hating it. I didn't have the courage to be able to say that I wasn't enjoying the work that I was doing. I built this business. I had a team of people. I wasn't enjoying it, and as a result, I didn't realize the process of manifestation in my life. But pretty much when you start to hate something, you'll start to manifest the things that confirm the things that you're thinking about. And so when you're not comfortable in your jobs or your relationships, and you start to not be honest with yourself, like I wasn't able to do, my business started to fail. And so eventually I got to one day where I woke up, and I think I'd lay awake the previous night, and that had been like the 7th night in a row. I'd lay in bed thinking, fuck, what am I going to do here? Why am I so upset? Like just this continual uneasiness. And I was like, you need to make a change here. And so that decision was made in an instant, but it took 4 years for me to get to that place. And it sounded like me going to my partner and saying, I don't know what I'm going to do anymore, but I can't do this. So I sort of took one baby step from there. And then I had a friend's wedding in the UK, and I thought, well, I'll go to the wedding and then be back at the end of the year, which was May till the end of the year of 2014. And I'll see what happens. I'll take 6 months and I'll go and find myself, thinking I'd come back to South Africa, start another business. This this is this death and rebirth process that I'm talking about before. You know, you go into the chrysalis, and I think I'll go back to being a caterpillar before, but there's more to be gleaned from these moments if you can take the time to be present in them. And so, yeah, my 6-month backpacking trip, which started in the UK at my friend's wedding, moved me all the way through Asia, 5 months in India. I spent some time in Nepal. I was there for the earthquake that happened in 2015, which was a pretty pivotal moment in my life, because around me, 9,000 people died. And suddenly you look at your life and you're like, I need to really make sure that whatever I do with every single moment, that I'm making the most of it, because I could have been the guy that was hiking, you know, that I met a week before in the same youth hostel, and the village of Langtang was completely covered and 400 people died, including the guy that I met. And I'm like, I could have been on that walk with him, you know, and suddenly your life hangs in the balance, and you have that moment of clarity where you're like, anything that's not a full yes has to be a no. And so that sort of became the way that I try to align my life. And so it's not always like that, you know, you still find yourself stuck in repetitive stories and doing things and getting in your own way and not allowing the flow to happen in your life. But yeah, that's got me to a place of a lot of introspection. And my journey's really been one of developing self-love and self-acceptance. You know, my time in Johannesburg was filled with sort of shallow connections with good-looking women and partying and alcohol and stuff, which was really just a way of me being able to bypass the way that I felt uncomfortable in myself. And so, yeah, the time on the road allowed me to step out of that world as a way to be able to look at my life differently. And yeah, along the way, I found out about manifestation and how it worked. And I started looking at different techniques to control my mind, because I realized just how important that was and how unconscious I'd been navigating my life up until that point. You know, I'd set goals and made things happen, but I wasn't aware that the things that were showing up in my world continuously, the repetitive patterns, I failed to see the common denominator was always me, you know,
Yeah.
that shadow piece. So that was really the short version of a long story. And then at the beginning of last year, I came back to Guatemala for my second time. I love Latin America. I am crazy about Spanish culture. I spent some time in Mexico. I spent some time in Costa Rica. I've got permanent residency in Panama. And at the beginning of last year, I met Araminta, my partner, and we now live on Lake Atitlan in Guatemala, which is this amazing crater lake surrounded by volcanoes and nature. And yeah, it feels like a massive blessing every day.
Amazing. You know, you bring up a point here I'd like to just share with everybody. You know, during this particular period, while it feels like things are out of our control, we've got two choices. We can either play the victim in our lives, where, oh, things are happening to me, and, you know, and you play the poor me syndrome, or we can choose to step into our real power as human beings, which is that we are the creator, that we get to choose and to manifest and to really think about how we want our lives to sort of, what direction we want our lives to start to go in. And I think when you talk about manifestation and about really thinking about and putting energy into your own life story, that we still, even during this crazy period, have the power, and that we still have the choice to move to that caterpillar phase whenever that environment will start to allow us to do that. But it's important, I think, during this process, you know, as we self-reflect and as we start to look back at our lives and we start to think forward, that, you know, everybody out there needs to make sure that they are still taking control of their own life.
It's a really important point, bro. And what you touched on there is really the basis of my work. This Live More Perfect Days brand that I created. And essentially, part of the story of what happened to me on this trip was about 15 years ago. I've always been sort of a personal development junkie, like reading the self-help books and doing those things. I got Rich Dad Poor Dad as my first book when I was a teenager. Like, I was always in that space. And along the way, I found this exercise called My Ideal Day, which was this ability to give yourself a gift of being able to dream what your perfect day would look like if you took the time to write it down. And so I did the exercise. I wrote down how I wanted my life to look. I wrote that something like, I woke up without an alarm clock. I woke up in nature, somewhere close to water. I spend the first hours of my day doing exercise. I'm in a connection with somebody that I really care about. I do work that matters and income flows to me passively. And as I wrote this ideal day down, my day at the time looked nothing like that. It was a complete dream. I was working long, hard hours in Johannesburg, nowhere close to nature, just in the rat race, on the treadmill, really.
Yeah.
And I continued, I filed the exercise away and completely forgot about it. 5 to 8 years pass. I sell my business, the story I just told you about now. I decide I'm going to go traveling. The end of that 6 months, when I was supposed to be returning to South Africa, I'm sitting on a beach in India. I've now decided I'm definitely not going back to South Africa if I can help it. I'm going to see if I can keep traveling. I want to find a way to make some money, but going back to that life didn't feel like something I wanted to do. So I opened my laptop to plan and see what I'm going to do. I'm like, okay. So I go through my one folder called goals and life plans or whatever. And I see this exercise, this folder document called My Perfect Day. I'm like, I almost had forgotten I'd done it. But as I open it and read it, my life around me in India is exactly as I've written it down on that piece of paper. I get goosebumps every time I tell this story. And it still fucking blows my mind how there's something magical happening about taking the time to do this stuff. And in those moments when I saw this happening, I was like, this is what I need to be doing. There's clearly something here. And out of the blue, people have been sending me messages coincidentally like, listen, man, your stuff on Facebook looks amazing. Please, can we connect? I'd really like to just see if you can help me solve my life. And I'm like, first of all, I'm pushing these people away. I'm like, sorry, wrong dude. I don't even know what I'm doing with my life. I'm on a beach in Sri Lanka. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing. But then suddenly I start to realize that, yeah, I have these tools and these things are starting to show up. And so, yeah, this started me on this journey of lifestyle design. And maybe that's where we'll end up in this conversation. But yeah, lifestyle design is this idea of being intentional about creating a plan for your life and then installing the tools, routines, and habits that you need to keep you supported to that plan. And for many people, they'll be very intentional about making sure that they plan their next holiday and what flight they're going to catch, et cetera, et cetera. But those same people don't take the time to take an hour or two to write down what they would like their life to look like. And yeah, and then when life happens to them, they're like, oh, this is not what I wanted. But then the question is, what did you want? And you're like, not too sure, you know? So yeah, that's the whole journey of lifestyle designer.
So, you know, one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation today was really just to give people hope, right? And to say, look, don't use this time to just, you know, wallow in your own desperation, because we could easily do that, right? Playing the victim. But one of the biggest reasons, or probably one of the biggest excuses that we all use for not actually doing something as simple as writing down what our perfect day should or what we want it to look like, is that we say we don't have the time. You know, we're busy with work, we're busy with our family commitments, etc. So really in this period of the world, if there's one thing that we really now have that's opened up to us, is that extra bit of time. So as we start to go through your process and your the tools that you use, Gareth, I just want to remind everybody that this is the perfect opportunity to take that hour, take that 2 hours to start to think about your life, and let's start to look at that plan and what you actually use, Gareth, because I think you've put together such a wonderful story that makes the process of manifestation and the power of law of attraction actually work for us in our lives. So you created now this platform called Live More Perfect Days, which I think is the perfect name for it. Do you want to sort of step us out in that process? What does it look like? Is there, you know, specific things that people should be doing? Is there an order that we should follow and sort of expand on it?
So there's two things I just want to touch on there. I think the place that we're in at the moment, I want to go back to this place of allowing ourselves to grieve, to be able to be in this place at the moment. And I think a lot of us live in a world where we continually grab for the happy emotions and we'll always just be rah, rah, rah. And I'm particularly guilty of that. And I think for many of us, we need to be able to honor and celebrate the fear that we have about where we are at the moment, the fact that things are not going to be the same, and to be okay with those feelings, you know, to sit with them and be with them and allow ourselves to grieve the death of what was, like the life that we knew, the job that we thought we had, the way that we thought life was going to look. We're having a planetary initiation at the moment. All of us, irrespective of how much money you've got, are going through initiation at some point, and things are not going to be the same for many of us in different ways. And so that's the first thing I want to say. The second part about the being the victim, it's a really strong place for people, but I want to have some tough love here. And one of the things that I think is people say they haven't got time. I think what actually happens is when people realize that they have the ability to create and control their own reality and control their own life, they're not able to hold on to the victim story anymore. And as soon as that, for many people, they stay stuck in this world of, oh, my parents were shitty to me, and so therefore I didn't get a good job and my last boyfriend broke up with me. And those stories keep you trapped. And when you step out of that into this personal self-responsibility place, you get to a place where you're like, actually, like, there's nobody that's going to change this except me. It's a really powerful place to be, but you have to let go of that victim story for that to happen. And so for many people, that victim story is a way to hold on to things, because as soon as you look outside of that, you can't go back. You can't go back to being like, okay, when you see that you write down your perfect day, or you place an order for something you want to show up in your life and you truly believe in it and you do the work and it shows up in your life, you realize you're creating your own reality. And suddenly your stories of victimhood or the dumb deal that I thought I had doesn't serve anymore, and you realize it's just a story keeping you stuck. And that's an important differentiator to make. You know, so many people do get stuck in that
Right.
that place.
So would you say that that's the looking in the mirror and realizing that there's only one person to look at and complain to if your life situation is not where it is, where you want it to be?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And look, I'm not saying that the world doesn't throw you a curveball. It doesn't mean that you didn't have a job and then the next day you didn't, or you had a girlfriend and then she skipped the fence, or those things happen. But you do have the ability to change how you feel in every single moment. You know, you can go into a victim and be like, she was the one for me and I loved her so much and life won't be the same. And I've been there. I've played that victim, you know, she was, you know, or it can be, there's a reason that this has happened. Maybe I need to learn a lesson and change it and reframe it. So yeah, well, once you do that, it's a powerful place to stand, but it's hard to go back to a victim story after you've seen that clarity.
It is. You know, I'm busy reading Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, which is a book I've had on my bookshelf for so long, but he talks all about the power in surrender. And surrender is not like, oh, I'm happy with the situation, but it is accepting the situation. And then to your point, from that place of peace, you can now pivot and recreate and change and take the lesson from whatever the situation was to empower yourself for the future. So
Exactly.
If you guys haven't read that yet, I would highly suggest a great time to read that book. And gain some powerful insights. So
Gareth, I didn't get to your point there, bro. I was those first 2 points were just talking about the process of taking self-responsibility. So your question initially was like, what's the actual steps that you take in a lifestyle design journey? And we've come up with this idea of lifestyle design as just that. You're designing your life in every single moment. And what are the best ways to do this? And we have this simple analogy of, I come from a business background, and what made sense to me was this: businesses are really good at having sort of a long-term strategy or mission statement about the general direction that they want to go. It's a long-term goal that they want to move towards. They then have sort of more tactical plans that they're going to be implementing every single quarter, and then they've got like a daily operations manual to support that. And it seemed like this very structured layer to be able to eventually get to this end point. You need to do some medium-term stuff and then actually do things on a daily basis that get you towards that place. And so what we've done at Live More Perfect Days is done a similar thing for yourself. So the lifestyle design journey is really creating an overarching plan for your life, which sounds super complicated, but we've made it super simple just by doing this Live My Perfect Day. So what you do is you design in as much detail as possible what a perfect day would look like for you, and take the time to write that down. And then install the routines and habits that you need in your life, things like a morning routine, things like the power of visualization, things like journaling, etc., to help support you on a daily basis moving towards that plan. Sort of the operational type things that you would associate with in a company, you actually do in your day. So we install tools and technology to help support you on this plan, and we've actually called it scaffolding. So basically, the same way that scaffolding supports a building as it's being built, these tools are things like vision boarding, understanding law of attraction and manifestation, understanding the power of meditation, exercise, understanding emotional blockages and how to shift emotional energy in your body. And once you install these things in your life, you start to move more into alignment to be able to move towards the place of living more perfect days. So that's the overall structure that we've created for this program of lifestyle design. And it's something people can do for free on our website. The Perfect Day exercise is free for anybody that wants to go to livemoreperfectdays.com jump in there and yeah, do the exercise for free.
Wonderful. Yeah, actually, I was on there this morning. So, guys, livemoreperfectdays.com. It's a great platform. You'll get your initial introduction to there. And one of the things that I really like about what you've designed is that you've integrated everything with tech. And one of the things that we all have with us 90% or 99% of our lives these days is this phone. And I know that you're a big junkie on using your phone and the apps and the tools, that you can now use with a phone to help you follow through and keep you sort of accountable to the process. So, Gareth, you've got three sections in there, right? And I'd like to talk a little bit about the things that people are going to find when they go into livemoreperfectdays.com. And the first one is the pre-game. Do you want to talk us through the pre-game? It's such a cool word because it reminds me as being, as a sports person myself, the whole pre-game, the G'ing up, the getting prepared and ready for the actual game.
So the story that we're creating around lifestyle design really is a changing of linguistics and language and story around the law of attraction. And because what I found was when I had first, I tested the law of attraction maybe I'll just tell the story quickly because it's kind of why I got here. So one of the things that I did after watching a documentary called The Secret was I wanted to test this process. I'd never heard of manifestation before. I watched The Secret. If those who haven't seen it, it's an interesting documentary which explains this idea of law of attraction and how you can create your reality by what you're thinking about. And so I decided to test what I learned in the documentary, being quite skeptical, and I created a vision board item, which was to have $1 million in my life by December 2016. I created this item. I made it my Gmail wallpaper, actually, to test this process of visualization and forgot about it. And December 2016 came and went, and I really thought nothing more of it until December of 2017, a year later. I had taken a bit of a gamble on some cryptocurrency stuff, and the cryptocurrency market exploded in December of 2017, and I had $1 million in my wallet. And I was suddenly like, what is going on? Like, did this stuff happen because I made the thing, or would it have happened anyway? But I get goosebumps again. It's just like, there's a part of me that's like, there was something that I needed to pay attention to there. There was this lightning bolt of realization, and I was like, this is too weird. This is so, anyway. So I start deep diving into law of attraction. I'm super fired up. I want to find a way to learn this stuff and implement it. And what I found was I thought that the way that they were teaching the law of attraction was really fluffy. They spoke about vibrational alignment and coming into vibrational alignment with the things that you want to manifest. And the languaging for me felt super woo-woo. And yeah, I couldn't really relate to it, but because of this big thing that had happened, I wanted to find out how it worked, and then find out how to implement it and make it work for myself on an ongoing basis. And so that was a process of understanding how it works by learning it through this fluffy way, and then changing the story around it to then install these pieces of scaffolding that essentially are helping you to manifest and use the law of attraction. And so the idea of the pre-game is just another word for a morning routine. Or a pre-game for a particular phase. So before I came on this interview this morning, I did a 5-minute pre-game, which is write down things you can be grateful for. Write down orders for the phase. An order is something that you want to bring in, so some sort of intention. So I'd be like, I wanted to have a smooth, clear, inspiring conversation with Ryan. I wanted to be in my ease. I wanted to be articulate. You write down what you want, and then you write down how you want to feel. So including emotion into a pregame is an important part of it. So I wanted to feel calm. I wanted to feel relaxed. And so I wrote those things down. But the pregame is essentially just the planning that you do before a phase. And the daily pregame is essentially a morning routine that we teach as well to help keep you aligned on your lifestyle design plan.
Right. And this is something ultimately that people will sort of fill out themselves. You just provide
Absolutely.
the framework
the framework of what it is. Yeah.
Got you.
And so the way that the daily pregame looks is it's the same format for most of them. You start every single pregame with gratitude. What can you be grateful for? What that does from the fluffy woo-woo stuff is it gets you into an open state, and gratitude is an emotion that you can only feel for something that your mind believes has already happened. You know, you can only be grateful for, you can't be grateful for something in the future. You can be grateful for the opportunity of what you think is coming in the future. But what that does is it lets your mind and your body know that something's already happened. And when you're radiating from that place, when you feel that way, those elevated emotions of gratitude, and then you write down what you want to happen in your day. I want to get through my to-do list. I've got to make a phone call to the bank. I want my conversation with my partner to go well. If you write those things down from this elevated state, they tend to happen more clearly. And so that's basically how you start a pregame. It's just an intention setting process that you take for 10 to 15 minutes in the morning, and set up your day that way specifically. So that's essentially the structure for pregame. The first
Wonderful.
component.
Okay, so that's a daily process, and the actual process of writing the perfect day, that's something you do as a separate exercise?
Yeah. So the perfect day exercise is something that you do once. You give yourself an hour or 2 hours where you turn off your phone. Again, we talk through this whole thing. If you go to livemoreperfectdays.com, there's a step-by-step process of how to do it. But essentially you do that once, and you can relook at that when you want to make updates. It's a dynamic document. But then what we do is we get you to create a reminder on your phone to read your perfect day maybe once a week, and allow yourself to go into that place where you feel these emotions of what it would feel like when you start to live your perfect day, which may not look anything like your day is at the moment, but you're just allowing yourself to be open to the magic of manifestation by going through this process. So the perfect day exercise is something that you'll do once, and then you'll probably read it once a week or once every 2 weeks, depending on what's in your flow, or whenever you want to pick up, whenever you want to be inspired by something, you can go through that process and read your perfect day. So that's the main plan. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And just something on that, Gareth, it's all, I find that the power of numbers is such a beautiful thing. Where more than one person come together and they start to think this way, or people align their visions together. That somehow the universe has an incredibly quick way of helping you to manifest these things. So I'm just going to say to everybody out there, I know this time is crazy. I know that we all hurting, but if more of us really start to think about the perfect day, as we all start to think about the better outcome for the future, that I really feel that power of consciousness will start to step in and start to work for everyone's benefit. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So Gareth, right, so we've got the pre-game involved. Then the second scaffold that you've got on Live More Perfect Days is called the order board program, which is what?
Again, we changed the languaging here. So an order board is, let me do the third one first, because it makes sense in this order.
Okay.
So the three main pieces of scaffolding are called pre-game. The second is called the factory, and the third is called the order board. And the reason I want to do the factory first is that what I found when I was starting to understand manifestation and law of attraction was people were talking about setting your intention out to the universe, and then you just hold like a positive vibration, and then these things flow into your life. And I was like, man, there's got to be a cooler way to talk about this. Like, it feels like it needs to be modernized. And so we came up with this analogy of a factory where you start to think about the universe. We don't call it that at Live More Perfect Days, we call it the factory. And think about it as placing an order for something you want to show up in your life with the factory. And so essentially what that is a process of placing an order for something you want to show up in your world. It could be any goal. It could be your perfect relationship. It could be work that matters. It could be an ideal partner. It could be money, whatever it is that you're looking for. And you place this intentional order with the factory, and there's a process for doing this as well. And then there's a process of paying for your order, with the only acceptable currency, which is belief. And belief is made up of gratitude, patience, and progress. And when you start to align these three elements with the orders that you want, and you pay for your order in full, the order that you want shows up in your life. It's a simplified version. There's a lot of nuance in this stuff, but we wanted to make it as simple as possible for the Gareth of 5 years ago who had never heard about this stuff, to try and find an entry point that made sense and wasn't too woo-woo. So the factory overview is a way to understand law of attraction, to know how it works, and to install it in your life. So that's the second piece of scaffolding, called the factory. And it's called the factory, but it really is just an introduction to law of attraction.
Wonderful. Just recap those 3 points there. So it's gratitude,
patience, and progress.
And progress.
So
progress is the action part that you need to do every day. Like, what can you physically do to help you move towards that point? and the
Yeah.
patience, obviously, because when the timing is right, the timing is right. It's very difficult to try force a specific date for something to happen in your life.
Yeah. And the part of it. So remember, those three stack up to belief. So what happens is when you truly believe that you are worth $5,000 a month of passive income, the factory will find a way to deliver that to you. But most of us don't believe, we want the perfect partner, but we think we're not quite worthy of love, or we want the $5,000 a month of passive income, but we don't think we've got the skills to build an online blah, 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 whatever. So until we truly believe, that order tends to be blocked before it comes into your life. So the way you can break down belief is gratitude, patience, and progress. And if you can start to be a little bit grateful for some of the things on your path, like I haven't got $5,000 a month, but I have a plan and I'm super grateful for that plan. You hold that vibration of gratitude for that. Patience is really like, if you truly believe something's coming, you'll be patient to wait for it. You know it's coming. And so once you know that, and you can start to be patient, what happens is people start to cling, and we're all guilty of it. Like, I want the perfect partner now, like I'm ready to have it. You get into that clinging and needing. And as soon as you do that, you move out of the place of flow and love. And the way to manifest the perfect partner is to be perfectly okay with yourself.
Yeah.
The way to manifest 10 grand a month or 5, 20, 30 grand a month is to be perfectly okay with the current financial income that you have. And when I say be okay, I don't mean like say you're okay. Feel it, resonate, and truly be okay with, you know what, I'm exactly where I need to be at the moment. If my perfect partner shows up, cool. But if she doesn't, I'm still perfectly cool. And that's where I'm coming from. And then the magic starts to happen. And then the progress component is, what is the last thing that I'm actually doing to move towards this? What intentions am I creating to show the factory that I'm serious about this? I want this holiday, but I've done nothing about it. I'll open a savings account to start putting some money in. And it's a small step in the progress direction that makes up the third component of belief.
Brilliant. Okay, super. So that's the factory. And in the factory, you're also talking about, so that's the point. That's what makes the things happen, right?
Yeah.
And then the order.
So the order board is our modern version of a vision board. This is the part where you harness the power of visualization using something called vision board, which is also spoken about in The Secret. And I've heard about it before. The traditional way of doing an order board is you take a big piece of cardboard, you grab some magazines, and you look for things that you really love. You cut them out and you place them on this vision board, and you have these visions of things that you want to come into your life. When I watched The Secret, they used this process to bring something into your world. I tested it with this random graphic of $1 million showing up in my life, and it showed up. And I was like, okay, how do we formalize this and make it work in the context of what we're talking about now? So the vision board, the order board, which we've changed the name to order board, is this digital app that runs on your phone where you are really intentional about the things, the orders that you're placing with the factory to show up in your life. So you could have an order board item that says $5,000 a month of passive income coming into my life. Be able to do a handstand for 5 minutes with good form. You're placing these things where you actually go onto Google Images and find a random image of something that you want to show up in your world, and you place this on your order board. As you place it onto the order board, the back of the card, it's done on cards, like there's a specific template. So let's use a simple example. I want $5,000 to show up in my life. So I go onto this order board template, which is one of the pieces of scaffolding that we teach. I go and find an image that represents $5,000 a month. It could be a pile of dollars. It could be my florist business that's going to bring it in. But that's the image that resonates for me related to this particular order. I add it to my order board. And on the back of that card, I write down things that I'm grateful for right now. I write down how this order, when it shows up in my life, is going to make the world better. And then you leave it. And you leave it on your order board. And you can have 20, 30, 40, 50, as many things as you want on your order board, as long as you're intentional about what you put on there. And then the order board then becomes part of your daily pregame. So in the morning, when you are going through your morning routine and setting up how you want your day to look, you open your phone, you open your order board, and you quickly scroll through a few things and you have a look. Oh yeah, cool. I'm thinking about Burning Man. And what makes this stuff magic is that our mind is it's a pattern forming machine. It's always looking for things. And there's a huge amount of information coming into our world. And this is how manifestation works, because it's looking for things to confirm its stories. And if its stories are about a world of scarcity and shitty people and I'm not worthy of love, it continues to find things in your day that confirm the story that you tell yourself to be true. But what happens is when you open up your order board and you looked at it this morning and it's like, I want to be proficient in Spanish, your mind is subconsciously processing those things. And when you walk down the street, you hear people speaking Spanish. You see, oh, there's a Spanish school. And suddenly the things that you want to show up in your world start to appear like magic. They're always there. You've just set up to be more open to those things because you've taken the time to do this. And that's the process of the order board. And you can think about an order board the same way the chef has an order board, you know, like all his orders in his kitchen, and he's like got all his food coming out and he's checking what's happening. Think of that as the way to manage the orders that you're bringing into your life. So we've set it up in that way so that the order board's supporting you, which again is then supporting your overarching plan for living a perfect day. So that's the third piece of core scaffolding in our program at Live More Perfect Days.
Amazing. So good. Now, I just love the way that you've involved tech here, something that's, you know, tools that people have in their hands to really help them make sure that their pre-game and their daily rituals, you know, they can use them and sort of decrease the amount of excuses that we normally come up with to not do these things. And so I absolutely love that. So, you know, Gareth, this is something obviously we could talk about for hours and hours and hours, but I just want to quickly, before we sort of, you know, wrap up, unfortunately, because we don't have all day, you've got a couple of your own amazing stories. And last year, I came to visit you in Guatemala, and it was your 40th birthday party. And I'll never forget that boat party. But you actually had that on your order board. Like, I don't know how long before, but when you showed me your order board and you showed me the picture, and then we went back and we looked at the pictures from the actual party, it was mind-boggling how similar and how close your order was to the real thing when we actually had your birthday party. Do you want to quickly share that experience with us?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to open my order board now in the background while I'm talking to you, because it is pretty wild. There's been so many of these, we call them order delivered. This is when a dream that you have manifests in your life, when the factory delivers something that you're placing and calling into your life and shows up, we call it an order delivered. And so this dream was really one for me of, I had this idea. A friend had a bachelor party in South Africa many years ago, and we had a whole lot of boys on a boat, and we had a barbecue on the boat and drank too many beers. But I was like, it's a really cool place to have a party. And so at the time of putting my order board together and going through this process of manifestation, I was like, you know what, I really would love to have a party on a boat with some cool people. And I've always loved electronic music, and I've had an interest in DJing, but never really been a DJ. And I had this idea of me DJing on a boat party somewhere in the world. At the time, I thought it'd be on the ocean. But I went onto Google Images and I just searched for this image of a boat party. And I was scrolling through all of the images that came up when I searched for boat party. And I suddenly found this one image and I was like, that feels like a cool image. So I copy and paste that image onto my order board, and I leave it there. It becomes part of my daily pregame, along with everything else that I'm calling into my life: relationships, money, perfect body, all the things. And then I end up in Guatemala. And my birthday was when you were here a year ago in April. And on the lake that we live on, you can hire a boat to do random functions. They do sort of booze cruises and sunset stuff. And I was like, that would be a cool place to have a party. Anyway, organized this boat. We had almost 100 people show up. I did my first DJ set there, and I took a photograph of me standing on the deck overlooking the party. And it's pretty profound how the random image that I searched for years earlier, I don't know, it still blows my mind. I mean, it works. It fucking works all the time, but it still bends my head when I just see how close they are. And let's see if I can find it for you quickly and share my screen. Can I share my screen here quickly, bro?
While you're looking for that, I also just want to say to everybody, you know, we all have this innate ability to manifest these things. So I'm going to encourage everybody. There we go. That was the picture. There we go.
This is the random picture that I chose. I was like, that seems to be the thing. So that was the order board item that I chose to create when I would randomly search Google. And this is what the order board looks like. This is the actual picture. Now it's going to a different screen, I think. Let me see if I can share it.
Right, and this is, so what you're showing here is the actual the app that you'll show us how to use on our phone.
Yes, exactly.
Just create the intention, the gratitude, etc. And that
This
was
is the
it.
photo.
That was
This
the
is the
party.
photo of me actually DJing at the party. And it's like,
It's crazy. It's
okay,
crazy.
this one, this
Fun.
one's got a roof. The other one didn't have a roof. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty magical how these things just start to work. Let me just quickly do this one more time, and I can just show you a really quick view of what this order board looks like, so that people can get a sense of. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, this is the order board broken up into various components of things that we want. A group by category, so it's things like mind, travel, business and projects, personal development, body, stuff I want to own, experiences I want to have, relationships, people I want to collaborate with, and then order delivered. These are all the things that have shown up in my world that I had placed orders for that just manifested. And so, yeah, we teach that whole process as part of the core scaffolding process within Live More Perfect Days.
Brilliant. So good, Gareth. I think this talk has been so good. And again, I just want to share this with people because I think now is an opportune time. Once we've gone through the grieving process and we've come to that place of surrender, that this is where we're at, and to let go of the old paradigms of the past, that we still have a lot of hope and we still have the ability to create our futures. And this is just such a wonderful platform to do it on. So, for all of you listening out there, go to www.livemoreperfectdays.com. Sign up there. You can do it for free to start off with. Gareth will take you through the platforms, the scaffolding. It's really functional, really simply put, and I think a very powerful tool that if you are ready to take ownership and you really want to start to be more specific and intentional with your life, that this is something that everybody should be doing. Is there anything else, Gareth, that you want to sort of share, or anything that we should be cognizant of as we go and we look for the stuff?
No, I think just two things. Again, I keep coming back to it, but yeah, allow yourself to be okay with how you're feeling at the moment. If you're feeling fear and it's coming up, don't shame yourself because of it. All these emotions are healthy indicators of what's happening in the world at the moment. And I'm not saying get stuck in fear and go into a victim story or into a place where you believe that the worst is coming, but recognize those feelings and allow yourself to process them, and then develop some sort of self-awareness practice, whether it's through meditation. That seems to be the best that I've come up with, to be able to track your emotions in every single day, because your emotion is just a physical manifestation of a thought that you've had. So if you're feeling fear, it was probably preceded by a thought of there's not going to be enough money, or the virus is going to eat me, or whatever your concern was beforehand. Your body is giving you signals at all times. And so as you start to tune into your emotional body, you really are able to see how you are thinking. And this is also part of the manifestation process is, if you're feeling uncomfortable about money, don't think that money is going to flow into your world because you've got a vision board item. You really need to be in a place where you can actually feel comfortable and feel gratitude for what you have in your life already, where you are truly in your ease, where you are truly patient, where you're truly believing that those things are going to show up. So yeah, I think that would be the first one, is just to allow yourself to do those, to be in the present moment of where it is. And then when you go through this process, it's a massive gift to yourself. It's the ability to be able to dream, to create. Here's another way to say it. When somebody, and this is part of our community, you touched on this earlier, this idea of people doing things together. That's why we've built the Live More Perfect Days community. And we have people in there that read their perfect days into their camera and share it in the community as a way to do two things. First of all, it inspires other people to do their own perfect day. And you get ideas from other people's things. You're like, oh yes, that would be a cool thing. And you update your own perfect day. But really what happens is when somebody takes the time to intentionally dream what a perfect day looks like, what they're essentially doing is creating the best possible version of themselves at some future date. And so we've got this thing called the Perfect Day Power Up, which is once you've created your perfect day, you go through the process of filming yourself reading your perfect day. You get a window into the future version of you that you want to manifest in the future. And it's a really powerful exercise to see somebody that you know and love reading something that when you see them reading it, you're looking at the best possible version of themselves. And when they see themselves doing it, it's a really powerful way to line up exactly what it is that you're trying to bring into your life. So yeah, allow yourself to dream, allow yourself to let go of any of the constraints that you think you have in your life. Because when I was sitting writing this down, if I had said, okay, I want to find a business in Johannesburg that makes, so many rands per month, like I would have dreamt too small and I would have manifested that reality. It would have been an order delivered. But if you allow yourself to dream, I wrote $1 million down on that piece of paper. Maybe I could have written 10 million. I limited myself, and just allow yourself to dream into whatever you feel is in authenticity and is in alignment with yourself. And yeah, feels like it would make a difference to you, the people that you love, the relationships you're trying to foster. And I think eventually the world as a collective, so you can become a better version of yourself and bring the world up.
Amazing. Amazing. And that community sits also on Facebook, because we've got a beautiful community now called Grow, where we share our best practices and motivation and stories like this with each other. But the Live More Perfect Days platform is also on Facebook.
We've got two. We've got the Live More Perfect Days install area, which is a deep dive of our members only experience directly on our website. It looks a little bit like Facebook. It's got groups and courses and stuff in there. You can create connections in there, and we're busy growing that. And then we also have a private Facebook group called the Law of Attraction and Manifestation Summit.
Wonderful.
That's all available directly through the website as part of our core scaffolding program.
Wonderful. Good, guys. So get out there, look it up. There's so many wonderful communities to get involved with, and let's make it happen. Let's start to manifest this beautiful reality that we want in our lives. Let's be intentional. Let's be grateful for what we currently have, and let's surrender to this moment of transformation. Gareth, I want to thank you so much for your time. You really are always an inspiration to talk to. I thank you for sharing your insights and your wisdom and your story. And you certainly, I'm sure, we'll have a follow-up conversation. I know there's some other projects that you're working on that I think would be great to share with our community. So we shall be in touch soon. Namaste.
Thank you, brother.
And have yourself
nice to see you, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan.
Be great.
Yes, bro. Ciao.